Howdy, everyone. How's it going tonight? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and I just got done watching The Tiger King and I, the follow-up after episode, if you will, hosted by Joel McHale, talking with a bunch of the people that we saw, and in some cases kind of fell in love with in regards to the Tiger King documentary, minus two people. One, I get. The other one, a little bit confused on, if I'm being honest with you. Now, this whole thing, you can tell right off the bat, was very much slapped together in the span of about 3 days. Netflix got the idea, hey, this thing's blowing up. 34.5 million people have watched it. It's global news. Everyone's talking about it. What are we going to do? People want more. They want more Tiger King. So what do? They go out and they ship iPhones and wireless earbuds to a bunch of people, and they all get them to talk to Joel McHale and film themselves, and then they send the footage back over the internet, or at least the Wi-Fi, and end up, putting it together. It's a very cheaply made thing. I guarantee you it didn't cost Netflix anything more than maybe a couple grand, and they're going to make a lot of money off of it. Because this is interesting. It is interesting. It's 40 minutes long. I thought it'd be longer. It's only 40 minutes long, shorter than any other episode. Carol Baskin, obviously not involved, and why would she be? She's not happy with the way she was portrayed. She's not happy with the way that the documentary treated her, and she believes, her and her husband Howard at least believe, that they were lied to by the filmmakers who had spent about 5 years working on this property. Not only that, but Joe Exotic wasn't involved. That to me was the most peculiar thing, because Joe Exotic loves this kind of attention. He's been giving interviews. He's been giving a lot of interviews from jail. And you're telling me that Joel McHale couldn't score a 15-minute collect phone call from jail? Come on. Come on. There is no reason why Joe Exotic should not have gone on this after show. Actually, there's a very good reason. I'll tell you what it is. They don't talk about it, actually. They don't mention Joe Exotic at all in this thing in regards to getting an interview. They don't want to talk to Joe Exotic. They don't say his name, that, well, we tried, but he said no. I'll tell you what it was. This is my opinion, my theory, my speculation. They called him up. They wanted to get him on there. I'm thinking his lawyers said no. Because Rinky had said, when he was asked by McHale, have you had contact with Joe Exotic? And he's like, no, I haven't. Because that man likes to talk, and he'll keep talking, and all this stuff is recorded. And so at that point, we're talking about really self-incrimination. And since he does have the right to plead the fifth, to not have to incriminate himself in court, obviously that's something that they're going to want to focus on, and that's something that his lawyers are probably going to tell him, look, do not go on any more of these shows. Do not talk to these people. But what we did find out is that he's been communicating with fans who have got a hold of him in prison. And the fans who got a hold of him in prison are now being instructed by Joe Exotic to run Facebook fan pages talking about Joe Exotic, calling for Joe Exotic's freedom and raising money to do so. So he has been able to run this on the side. Now, Rick Kirkham had basically said that, Joe is not in a position to benefit off of this at all, and that's got to be killing him. But we did find out from John Rinke that really it had everything to do with, being able to run the offshoot game. And if there's one thing we learned from watching Joe Exotic in Tiger King, this dude knows how to hustle. This dude knows how to hustle, man. He knows how to find his simps. He knows how to get people to want to throw down some green on the situation. Never mind that clip that popped up the other day of Trump saying he would look in to the Joe Exotic situation and potentially push for a pardon. This coming in from Don Jr., who binge watched the show and spoke very highly of it. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to go on with all that. Now, McHale, to his credit, did ask some good questions, but this again, they talked to a bunch of different people, and everyone only had about 4 to 5 minutes because they wanted to keep this short. I don't know why. This is Netflix. They're not running cable television time. They're not doing none of those things. Why do you need to keep it short? Well, because I think the interviews probably went on a little bit too long, and they realized that things were just maybe not as punchy as they could be. And that makes a lot of sense. Now they talked to the head of the zoo, whose name I forget right now, the blonde guy, who is a genuine dude. I forget his name, Eric something. They talked to him, and you find out more about Joe Exotic. You find out more about how Joe treated the animals, and Joe, he didn't treat him well. He didn't treat him well, and that was the thing that really bothers Eric, is that he is the head zookeeper, and he's still apparently the head zookeeper at GW Zoo, and he's there. And these animals trust him. And you can tell that there's a level of regret there, right? That he knew what he was doing was abusing his trust with these cats. And that he said himself that these cats, that they're aware that he abused his trust, that he abused their trust, and that they're aware, and that he, in his mind's either looking at him differently. And you know what that is, right? That's guilt. But now he can, without the influence of Joe and under the influence of Jeff, has the ability to perhaps find peace in the situation. And I honestly hope that he does. I hope that he does. Him and Rinky were the two guys that I think were like super non-motivated by anything other than just the cats. Now they talked to Ben Dial, Ben being, or Ben, whatever his name was, the guy, the campaign manager. That guy, who apparently now we find out in this one is gay, by the way. He made it as an offhand comment. Didn't know he was gay, but everyone thought that he was like on meth or on drugs or something. But no, he had his ulterior motive. He had the ulterior motive of being a political science major and wanting to run campaigns and then working for Joe to do it. And of course, him being there when Travis unfortunately took his own life, and him being the person that saw it happen, having to sit there for a year and a half after it happened, staring at that bullet hole that was still in the wall, not once getting counseling. He's now going to be trying to raise money in order to do that. By all means, when I come across that information, I will share that information, because I completely get it. I completely get it. It's been 4 years since my swatting, as I view as being an attempt on my life, and I still need counseling sometimes because I just get caught in my head around it. So, that stuff will mess with you. He saw it firsthand, saw a guy kill himself, was the last thing that guy saw before he punched his ticket. And I completely get that. Now, what I thought was interesting was he made a comment about how the documentary portrayed everything truthfully, right? That they laid it out pretty gloriously. And there wasn't any follow-ups on that. That was my complaint with Joel McHale, was like there wasn't any follow-ups on that. But that was a line he used. So you kind of have to read between the lines on this one here. So he's talking, about the documentary being accurately portrayed. But everyone else said, no, that's not the case at all. Jeff and Lauren Lowe said that's not the case. They were portrayed as the villains. John Finley was like, man, I was portrayed as a drug-addled, redneck. He's like, that's not who I am. I was off drugs when my daughter was born, and he's trying to do better and stuff. So like, the documentary was more focused on Joe and playing him up as this underdog Tiger King type, mythical figure, in my opinion. And these guys were trying to be nice in some respects, I think. Saf, specifically. Well, Saf, talking about how he lost his arm, still would go back and do it again. Didn't mistrust the cats afterward. Realized it was a was a problem with. It was part of the job. It was a hazard. But then was totally okay with his arm. That video of the arm being ripped off or being attacked and mauled, being used as a safety video in order to show people potentially what their lives will be like working for Joe Exotic, working in this zoo. These are the, you can lose a limb. And they talk about a guy even later on who had his finger bitten off by a bear, so, I mean, it's a wild, wild world to live in the GW Zoo, with Joe Exotic being the head. I would argue that the Jeff and Lauren Lowe one was probably, I don't want to say like the least interesting, but Jeff's a con man. He's a con man, and he's out there trying to con Joel McHale, and Joel McHale didn't push back on anything. I mean, this is meant to be more of like a kind of like lighthearted, fun take on it. Like, hey, what's your life like during a global pandemic? And now everyone out there has seen Tiger King. Well, apparently everyone goes to Walmart. They're most recognized at Walmart, which I'm not going to lie, kind of feels like it would be part of The crew, it kind of feels like that would be where they're best, where they would be best recognized, given how many Walmarts are in those areas. Look, and I say that I was in Lufkin, Texas in 2003 for a wedding. The town had 30,000 people. There was one super Walmart. The Saturday before the wedding, like the day before the wedding, everyone in town was at that Walmart. My friend, the bride, was at the Walmart getting her hair did. We ran into her at the McDonald's in the Walmart while she was waiting for her hair to set and having, you know, a McChicken and some French fries. This was the place to be. So you kind of get that when you're talking about rural areas, especially Oklahoma. Now, Rick Kirkham told a story at the end there that doesn't surprise me. Now, one of the things is when it comes to the murder for hire plot, a lot of people out there, you know, think Joe deserves to be in jail. In fact, I would argue everyone they talk to all believe Joe Exotic deserves to be in jail. Saf was the only one that was like, he shouldn't die there. So, you know, Saf has got some loyalty. But Joe Exotic did kill cats. He did. He was a cruel man in regards to the animal abuse. You know, he needed space. You could tell he was doing the mass breeding. And honestly, Doc Antill has been accused of very similar things, but way more humane. Joe was accused of just pulling out his gun and bang, bang. In fact, Rick tells this story that I thought was actually horrific. And I believe Rick. I do believe Rick, even though I still have questions about that backup footage. You're telling me that a former producer and on-air talent of Inside Edition didn't know anything about how to create backups of your digital footage? Come on, man. If this is your retirement grease, you create backups. And I have questions about that. But of course, those questions were not followed up on because Joel wanted it to be funny and upbeat and punchy. And Matt Jarbo would ask the hard questions and also make it upbeat and funny, talk about, you know, inappropriate things. But the story that Rick Kirkham had told about how there was a woman, and he says he had this on tape, but it's all gone now, so we have no way of seeing it. But this woman had come to Joe and had, you know, begged him to look after her horse who needed to be, quote unquote, put to pasture. He was old and just wanted him to have a good life. And Joe was like, oh, I have 40 acres, you know, whatever. And as soon as she was gone, he pulled out his gun and killed him and then cut the horse up for horse meat, or for tiger meat. That I believe. I do believe that. I believe Joe probably killed way more animals than we thought. If you look at the original footage of him when he, you know, back when he first started the zoo, and he was more about conservation, towards the end, you could tell it was about cash. Cash, money, and power. You know what I mean? Sex, money, power. SMP. That's what it was. That's what it was to Joe Exotic. And eventually life caught up with him. Eventually all these things caught up with him. This is what it was. This is what happened to Joe Exotic. And that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't show up in this after show. I mean, here it is, the most popular documentary in the world right now. He's one of the most famous people in the world right now. People are fan casting. I should probably do a video on that tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a video of fan casting Tiger King. You know, but it's like finding the people that, you know, people, everyone's talking about him. He told me he wouldn't want to be involved. I'm just saying something's up with that. So at the end of the day, it was an interesting 40 minutes. It gave us a bit more insight into these people, because they're people. They're not characters. They're not actors portraying characters. These are people and the lives that they experienced around being around Joe and what the documentary showed. But at the end of the day, I still have more questions than I have answers, because they gave us almost no answers. They condemned Joe Exotic, which I do believe was the ultimate point. But we still have so many questions that we need. And I would love to sit down and like have a conversation with any of these people and just ask them questions. You know, Joel McHale's not a journalist. As he says in this thing, he'll take any job that comes up. You know, Netflix is sent him an iPhone and some earbuds, and he sat on his couch and he recorded a whole bunch of Skype calls. It probably made like a couple $100,000 to do it. A couple $100,000 to not even leave his house. Jeez, Netflix, call me next time. I'll ask some good questions. It'll be funny. However, at the end of the saga, because it's at its end right now. There's like a to be continued ... but there's also an asterisk, and that asterisk is shit's kind of done for right now. Whether or not Joe gets his appeals put through, we have no idea. He lost a couple court decisions the other day revolving around lawsuits and things like that. And if Trump steps in, it's going to be pretty wild. But what I really want at this point is I want to know, what do you guys think? Where do you stand in this whole mixed up, weird, wild space known as the Tiger King? How do you view Joe Exotic as we get his story? We see it played out. 5 years of filming. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys are new here. Be sure to leave a like. I really appreciate it. Hit that notification bell. Hit that sub. Leave a comment for certain. And I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching. And remember, cats are our friends. Now, I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to cuddle up with my cat and go to sleep. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.